Hello everyone and welcome back to Fox Reacts. Today we're checking out the final theory for today, food theory, about how you should never eat the right Twix. And personally, I've never eaten Twix, so I can't really give a viewpoint. Not a huge fan of caramel. Does it have caramel? I don't know. Let's hop in.
History is full of iconic rivalries. In the sports world, there's stuff like Red Sox versus Yankees, UNC versus Duke, Ohio State versus Michigan. In pop culture, there's Edward versus Jacob, BTS versus Blackpink, Team Captain America versus Team Iron Man, Left Shark versus Right Shark. Even in the food world, there's rivalries with the likes of Coke versus Pepsi and Taco Bell versus your bowels. But of all these bitter rivalries, one stands out as being the sweetest of the bunch. Left Twix versus Right Twix.
Each factory took a vastly different approach. Left Twix flowed caramel on cookie, while Right Twix cascaded caramel on cookie. Try both.
Okay, they do have caramel,
for the past decade, Twix's marketing is centered around the different non-differences between the left half of Twix bars and the right half, all while asking us to pick a side. Well, today, we're gonna do exactly that. I'm gonna prove using data and science which side is indisputably the correct side of the Twix bar.
Alright, Matt, let's see if you can get. Oh, damn it, we got an ad. Hold on, folks, and pause. We're back, and as I was saying, alright, Matt Pat, let's see if you can convince this non-Twix eater, Twix, whatever the hell it's called. Let's see if you can convince this guy to actually try this candy. Or prove to me which side is the better one. Not a huge fan of caramel, so I may never
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Food Theory, the show that chooses violence and eats both Twix at the same time. Does that average out to make me middle Twix? So at this point, you get the basic conceit of the episode. Twix bars are some of the best candy bars available on the market. Strip a cookie, caramel on top, covered in chocolate. There are 2 Twix bars in every package of Twix. They should be identical to each other. They probably are identical to each other, and yet their marketing campaigns for the past decade have made a big deal about choosing sides. Are you?
Oh, whoops. You know, hold on, folks. Let me just load this up. Sorry about that.
Are you a left Twix person or a right Twix person?
I technically don't really keep friends from right Twix. There's something really off about those guys.
They've even gone so far as to create a lengthy backstory behind the rivalry.
Years ago, when the inventors Seamus and Earl unveiled their Twix bar, the tension between them reached a breaking point.
Snap.
Literally. To this day, sharing nothing but a wrapper and an ill-designed driveway.
Then they hired mercenaries to fight their brothers' mercenaries. Now, obviously, this is all a joke, right? A big old sarcastic, trust us, the left and right sides are totally different, wink wink. I mean, obviously, this thing isn't serious. If it was, they'd bother to keep their facts straight. Originally, right Twix was cascaded with caramel, see?
Left Twix flowed caramel on cookie, while Right Twix cascaded caramel on cookie.
But later in the campaign, it actually switches.
You guys ever tried one of these bars made over at Right Twix?
Why? Our special cookie is cascaded with caramel and cloaked in chocolate.
No, sir, no! Left Twix flows caramel and bathes in chocolate. Keep your story straight, Twix. It's almost like no one cares about the consistency of their own lore. Unless, of course, he's secretly an undercover agent from Right Twix posing as a Left Twix employee.
Nah. It's just a candy ball.
No, that's not a real thing. I just care about this way more than they did. But what if the whole Left Twix versus Right Twix thing isn't tongue-in-cheek? What if this whole thing isn't cloaked in sarcasm and bathed in marketing hype? When you're choosing a Twix, which team should you choose to be on? Between Left and Right Twix, which one is the better Twix? I guarantee that by the end of the episode, you will have an answer. And there's only one way to find it out. Buying an egregious amount of candy bars and then aggressively performing science on them. So before we go any further, we need to establish our terms because let me tell ya, things are gonna get confusing in a hurry. For the purposes of today, when I say a Twix bar, I'm talking about an individual stick of cookie dabbled with caramel and snuggled in chocolate. There are 2 Twix bars in a single packet. So that's the basics, but the bigger question, how do you tell the difference between left and right when the packaging has the bar's name written horizontally, thereby making this more of a top versus bottom kind of thing? Well, as we see in the commercials, the definitive way of opening a package of Twix is with the word Twix reading from the bottom up. So when you're looking at a standard package of Twix in a supermarket line, top Twix is left Twix and bottom Twix is right Twix. You got all that? Great. Now throw it out the window. You see, that's the way things should be if the universe didn't hate me. But life always always has a way of making these
Oh,
episodes
no.
more complicated than they should be. Knowing that I wanted an adequate sample size, we bought 208 Twix bars. And then
God.
we opened the boxes. And a slow dread passed over me as I realized that the wrappers are now labeled as containing 2 left Twix or containing 2 right Twix. Because
Oh,
life is
my
pain. You see the problem here,
Lord.
right? This adds yet another layer of confusion to the question. Not only do we now have to figure out if there's a difference between the left and right bars inside of an individual packet, but now we also have to factor in whether the Twix packaged as right Twixes and the ones labeled as left Twixes actually differ in any meaningful way. So with that in mind, I had to
no.
label all of my Twix as left to left, left to right, right left, or right right, taking into account both the name on the packaging as well as the side of the packet they're on. And just as a
man.
friendly reminder, this was meant to be a dumb episode, a fun one just for the lols, but instead it's becoming more complicated than trying to
Why
solve
do you
for
do this to
Mario's
yourself,
heights.
Matt
You know how
Pat?
sometimes on this channel I get mid-video regret syndrome about the episode topics I've selected? Yep, this is that point. A series
You
of
did this to
frustrated
yourself,
head
Matt.
desks later, it was data time. I needed to find the cold, hard differences between left Twix and right Twix so that I could, as the advertising suggested, choose a side. As such, I devised a few tests. First and easiest was a simple weight test. Pop them on the
Alright.
scale and see what it spits out. Second was a crunchiness test. Maybe something with the
Okay.
packaging renders one of the bars a bit more stale than the other. And finally, a taste test. Give random strangers a blind taste test of a bunch of Twix bars to see what trends pop up in the data.
Hey,
And then
wait, I thought they did that in an
maybe
ad.
I'd be able to draw some conclusions about
they?
the optimal Twix experience. First, weight. Twix bars
okay.
average between 24.5 and 25.5 grams, and any deviation from that was very rare. Out of the 208 bars that we weighed, only 10 fell outside of the range, which, hey,
Ooh.
kudos to Mars Incorporated. Quality control game is on point. The
Very
biggest
nice,
outlier was a
nice.
monstrous 27-gram thick boy with pretty much all the extra weight coming from a larger volume of caramel. So, was this a
Nice.
right bar or a left bar? It was a left Twix coming out of a package labeled 2 right Twix.
They ask you how you are, you have to say that you're fine when you're not.
So it was a
Of
right
the other
left.
overweight bars, 5 of them came out of left Twix packages, with 2 specifically being left bars. Among the Twix that were underweight, both of them came from right Twix packages, but one was from the left side and one was from the right side. When you do the math, it works out like this.
Oh,
The average
boy.
weight of Twix on the right side of the package, 25.03 grams. The Twix on the left side of the package, 25.04 grams. Basically no difference. But maybe instead of looking at where in the
Think a
packet the Twix came
single
from, we should just trust what
microgram.
the label tells us. Twix that came from packets labeled left Twix averaged out at 25.05 grams, while Twix coming out of 2 right Twix packages averaged out to 25.02 grams. That is a 0.03 gram per bar difference for left Twix, 0.06 grams in a packet, so a slight edge for left Twix, but still, it's practically a rounding error. Go figure,
It's
it's almost
just-
like they're meant to be identical. So the next thing I wanted to try was crunchiness, which to me
Alright.
served as an indicator of freshness. I've used a decibel meter for a couple episodes now. We used it for trying to create the crunchiest chip episode here on
Oh,
Food
I
Theory.
remember
In Film
that.
Theory, we used it to test out the survival techniques of A Quiet Place. So yeah, we got it. Why not eat some Twix in front of it? I took 3 bites of 16 bars, with 4 from each category being represented. I expected literally nothing to come out of this, but the differences that I found actually wound up being shocking. Bars in
Ooh.
packages marked right
Alright.
Twix wound up being
You got me
slightly
interested.
louder than their counterparts in the left Twix sleeves, but only by a little bit. A 1.4 decibel difference, nothing major.
Nice.
However, there was a noticeable difference between the left and right Twix in the same package. Bars on the left of the packet averaged 72.3 decibels, which was noticeably louder than the 69.6 decibels coming from
Nice.
bars on the right. It was nearly a 3 decibel swing. Wait a minute, we found a difference. We found a significant difference. This episode wasn't a waste of time. While human error is certainly an X factor that could explain these 3 decibels, I did my best to try and keep the bites consistent and sample enough to try and make it fair. No, I suspect that the 3 decibel difference might actually have to do with the packaging or
Ooh,
storage
yeah,
of the
okay.
Twix. In fact, my hypothesis, my food hypothesis, is that it all relates less to the left versus right
Alright.
difference and more to the top versus bottom placement that I talked about earlier. When on store shelves or slotted into a shipping box, one Twix is always going to be sitting on top of another because of the way the package is printed, the one on top becomes the left Twix in our experiment today, which wound up being the noisier of the two groups. So being on top is potentially doing something to keep the bar fresher and crunchier. Maybe it's exposed to less light, or maybe less air. Maybe residual moisture is being caught in the bottom of the package while the top is able to stay nice and dry. Not entirely sure, but for a crisper snap, left Twix seems to be the quantitative winner. Finally came the real test, the taste test. Asking a number of friends, associates, and random strangers to eat candy while I stare at them and take notes. I made sure to unwrap the Twix before serving it to them to not bias anyone with a left Twix or right Twix wrapper. Instead, I thought it was a better idea to walk around carrying Ziploc baggies full of unwrapped candy bars marked with strange symbols. Also, I was driving around in a windowless white van. On an unrelated note, I'm now on a couple of government watch lists for science. And what did my Class A felony get me? Nothing. To my surprise, there was no surprise. And by that I mean there was no clear preference between left or right Twix, no matter how you were defining left or right Twix. No trend, no difference, except there was one key data point that stood out like a sore thumb. People's preference had nothing to do with left versus right, but it had everything to do with which bar they selected first. In a whopping 85% of our tests, the subject reported that the Twix bar they ate first tasted better than the second, which comes with a shocking takeaway for Twix. You guys don't need two bars. Forget left versus right Twix, you're trying too hard. Just give people one. The first is apparently more than enough. Honestly, it's kind of ironic considering Twix's old marketing slogan, the one that I grew up with. Yep, encouraging the kids of my generation to be outright terrible to each other so that they can have more candy. Except, as our data just showed, we actually don't want more candy. The second bar is always going to taste far inferior to the first. Maybe instead of selfishly hoarding both bars like some sort of greedy chocolate dragon, you instead share that second Twix and get yourself the sweet taste of altruism. Or Twix, maybe you save some money and give the people what they really are asking for, less of your candy. Our data in this test actually supports existing research in the field, something called sensory-specific satiety, or triple S, if you want to make it sound like a cheap Vin Diesel ripoff. It's the scientific term for the human experience of enjoying.
Whoa, okay, no idea why it's lagging so bad. Let's take a break just for a moment. We're back.
Food less the more of it we eat. Part of this is diminishing returns as we get less enjoyment from the things that you get, but sensory-specific satiety actually goes way beyond that. An Oxford study found that your desire for the specific types of food you're eating drops significantly faster than for other types of uneaten food. Studies done on the pathways in a monkey's brain showed that as it ate, certain neural pathways to the monkey's hypothalamus, that's the part of the brain that controls your appetite, became less responsive when the monkey saw food that it had recently eaten, but it would become more responsive when it saw new uneaten food. Bringing things all the way back around to our original question, which is better, left Twix or right Twix? Well, if you're looking to maximize your enjoyment, choose left Twix first. Not only was it shown to be the slightly fresher bar, but choosing it first means that you're getting the best bites when you're most eager to be eating the candy. But again, shocking literally no one, the difference here is mostly in the marketing. These two things are made to be identical, which leaves us asking the big question of why? Why go to the effort of taking two identical food products and giving them two separate labels? I mean, Twix is basically advertising against itself. Why does this work? How does this work? Does this work? Well, like so much of advertising, it all comes down to psychology and the tricks that marketers can play to get into your brain. There's a phenomenon called choice supportive bias, or post-purchase rationalization, which is the tendency of people to come up with justifications to support the choices that they're making in their life. Whenever people are forced to decide between two or more different products when making a purchase, they're more likely to ascribe positive attributes and associate positive feelings with the product that they just bought. It's basically the opposite of buyer's remorse. We want to convince ourselves that we made the right choice. Our money wasn't wasted. In fact, this happens all the time, even when the choice is a complete illusion and we're choosing between two identical products. It's one of the big reasons that lotteries let you control which numbers that you pick, even though you're just as well off with a completely random lottery ticket. Giving people the ability to choose, even if it's a false or artificial choice, gives them a feeling of control. Whenever you bite into that Twix bar, whether it was a right or a left Twix, what you're experiencing while chewing is the result of a decision that you just made, which motivates your brain to come up with justifications for why this Twix bar is actually delicious, and why you're so smart for having made the decision that you just did. Speaking of smart decisions, by the way. On screen, you're about to see 2 other episodes of Food Theory. If you want to see me debunk another classic candy bar marketing slogan, check out this video breaking down the science of why, if you're hungry, you should not grab a Snickers. And if you want to find out about an even bigger lie that Big Candy's been feeding ya, check out this video unveiling how a frighteningly large number of candy bars that claim to be made with chocolate aren't actually chocolates. Regardless of which one you choose, just know you've already made the smartest choice of all watching this channel. Now go, grab a top Twix and share the bottom one with your friend. You deserve it. And as always, remember, it's all
just a theory, a food theory. But now, that's what we're going to need to call the end of today's video. So, I want y'all to remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Down in the description will be a link to the original video, so remember to support the original creator and all he does. And I'll see all of you folks in the next video. Peace.